Hello, welcome to 21 This Week on the United Nations International Day of Peace. I'm Susan Heltemes. Coming up next, housing moratorium on Silver Spring, Wheaton, and part of Bethesda, safe space for whites at the University of Maryland, and native son Brett Kavanaugh in the news. We are joined today by an astute panel of political insiders, former Rockville Mayor Susan Hoffmann Mark Uncapher, Secretary of the Maryland Republican Party, Evan Young, Maryland Young Republican National Committeeman, and past president of Progressive Maryland, Elbridge James. Stay tuned for these topics and more. We've built in assumptions for human behavior, and those dynamics are changing. Is the priority a big house and a big yard anymore, or being close and having the amenities? The paradigm for what families want is changing, is what Council Member Craig Rice said this summer regarding school construction in Montgomery County. Susan, more people want to live in urban, walkable neighborhoods where they can walk to shops, jobs, transit, and entertainment. As a result, people are choosing close-in neighborhoods like Silver Spring, Wheaton, and Bethesda, where there is a lot of demand, houses are becoming expensive, and few are being built. Does this spell doom for the up-county?
No, I don't think so at all, because there are still people who do want the yard and property and like mowing the grass and so forth. So I think these folks will self-sort. I think the up-county is beautiful and lovely, and it will continue to have a more suburban aspect and serve those needs for people who are looking for that kind of lifestyle.
Well, Mark, to overcome these housing issues, parents are now renting apartments, living with relatives, and even doubling up with other families to make ends meet. In response, Montgomery County placed a housing moratorium on the Blair and Northwood catchment areas, as well as Ashburton Elementary School near Montgomery Mall. For a year, hundreds of homes have been put on hold, including subsidized multi-bedroom apartments in downtown Silver Spring. Is this short-term solution really useful?
Well, I think it reflects some very basically flawed assumptions. Both Craig Rice and the question miss the census data. If you look at our metropolitan area, Frederick County, Loudoun County, the exurban counties are growing much faster. So, and the houses, new construction of houses, the houses are getting larger. So the assumption that there's this big movement into urban, more densely populated area is simply not supported by the data. But our planners are assumption that basically have continued to assume that their preference is what the marketplace wants.
But perhaps if we believe what millennials want, maybe for the first time Montgomery is thinking ahead, because Montgomery County has notoriously been bad at planning, and maybe this is what will happen even more and more, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So Elbridge, Blair High School is bursting at the seams, as are other schools in Silver Spring. Well, schools have empty rooms in other parts of the county. Two new schools near me, actually, Flora Singer Elementary and Silver Creek Middle School, were unsuccessfully blocked by neighbors and even Executive Mark Elbridge for the size of the lot or because trees would be cut down. What should be done to meet the growing needs of schools in these areas?
If I'm correct, we used to have a surplus of buildings down in the Lower County area. The county needs to look at recapturing some of those buildings, refurbishing them, and then putting them to good use for our residents that are in those areas. You can't ask parents really to go out of their area too far to help educate their children. So the boundaries have to be changed, but you still need to look at your inventory and where you can draw classroom space that is safe and dependable for the parents and the kids.
And nearby.
Yes.
Okay, Evan, there are some who have promoted using empty office buildings with rooftop playgrounds, or taking back, as Elbridge just said, public schools rented to other organizations and even private schools. What do you think of that?
I think, sort of to piggyback off what Mark was saying, where people will be moving in the future, especially millennials you mentioned, really depends where they are. The single friends that I have, millennial age, yeah, they all want to be down in Rockville, Bethesda, around there.
Don't forget Silver Spring.
Some in Silver Spring. The ones I know that are getting married, though, they're leaving the county completely. They're moving to Frederick County or Howard County because they still do want a place to raise their kid with some space. I don't know any friends my age, millennial age kids that are getting married that say, I want to raise my future family in a 2-bedroom apartment.
But that's the point. People in Montgomery County may move to Frederick. People in Washington, D.C. are going to move to Montgomery County. So there's going to be that give and take, especially as long as Washington is an attractor for folks that are from around the country moving here.
Well,
there's always going to be that ebb and flow.
In a conversation I had with Arnie Sorensen, the head of Marriott, he said that their young millennials and younger workers, they had to move from their campus over near, not too far from Montgomery Mall, because their employees, one, didn't want to have cars, and they wanted to be able to walk from where they live to eat, to shop, and to go to work and walk home again at night and not have to get in a car. So if that is the case, you know, there has to be some of that if Marriott is thinking that.
Maybe, I guess I'm just like a 70-year-old man on the inside.
With the name of young, though.
Yes, because I know that that's what a lot of single millennials want. I don't want that, so, you know, I can only speak for myself. I want to go home and be away from noise and people and not look out my door and see stuff going on.
While
So,
you mow your lawn.
Yes.
Well, Susan, as the mayor of Rockville, you've probably heard that planning in this county has been messed up over the years, the school planning and everything else. What do you think about all of this?
Well, what we did in Rockville Town Center was actually to try to create a town square, which we did, and it was very successful. It continues to be successful, similar to what happened in Silver Spring on a somewhat smaller scale, and what's similar to what's going on at Pike and Rose. These folks, not everybody wants the 2-car garage, even with children. Some people like a more urban lifestyle. We're used to seeing that in the big cities in New York and in Philadelphia and Boston and so forth, but we have the answer to it here too. And you don't have to go to DC to get in the brownstone. You can go to Park Potomac, and you can go to downtown Silver Spring, and you can go to Rockville and get that same kind of living environment.
On that note, you're going to have the last word, and what's interesting is perhaps the value of my house will go up being down near Silver Spring. Anyway, on to the next topic. A safe space for white students counseling center at the U of Maryland College Park campus has created an uproar. Elbridge, a logo that asks, do you sometimes feel uncomfortable and confused before, during, or after interactions with racial and ethnic minorities, has been changed, but the center lives on with a new name, Anti-Racism and Ally Building Group. What's your take on this?
It's an opportunity that was needed. I retired from the University of Maryland, and I saw youth, no matter their racial, allegiance, alliance, whatever you want to call it, do some stupid things. Youth need to have the opportunity to learn and grow, and sometimes be challenged in a way where they're not going to be labeled totally, where they can get their thoughts out and speak their mind, and then
feel safe.
And feel safe.
So you think it's a good idea?
The concept is good. Remember, we're building, no matter, the University of Maryland is developing managers, supervisors, and leaders for tomorrow who are going to have to lead a diverse population. Okay, you can't have outdated thoughts. You have to be able to make everyone at your workplace comfortable.
Okay, well, Evan, a student was quoted in the Maryland Diamondback newspaper saying, white people have laid down the rules and the groundwork, so they don't need a privatized space. Is this student correct?
Student's correct, because nobody needs a privatized safe space. If you're uncomfortable around people that don't look like you, the answer isn't to not be around those people. It's to spend more time around people not like you and get comfortable with them. An 18-year-old kid, especially an 18-year-old kid at college today, it's never in the history of mankind been easier to be an 18-year-old college student. And to them, life is going to get a lot harder than it is now. This reminds me, when my grandfather was 15, he was an orphan, his immigrant parents had died. He used his older brother's birth certificate to get into the Navy during World War II to go fight Nazis. They considered, men my grandpa's age consider a safe space a trench dug somewhere in Western Europe. Now students are saying they need a safe space because of the stresses of eating chicken nuggets in the cafeteria around someone that doesn't look like them before they go to math class in their sweatpants?
Evan, it's more than that.
It's not.
It
It's
is.
not.
It is more.
I went to college. I never
experienced-
sat in a safe space in my life.
I've
You go
experienced.
to-
I
you
guess
go around
I've
people.
experienced youth that have questions and in fact made missteps, not understanding that it was a misstep.
But I just want to throw out, everybody says that young people now grew up in neighborhoods where there were blacks, Latinos, you were acculturated with gay people, and you had every religion around you, and it is easier, don't you think, than maybe even when you worked at the university?
Not at the University of Maryland. University of Maryland, because of its academic challenges and because its criteria are now reaching into communities that don't have the diversity. And so we're attracting some students because they're academically successful, and these are really great students, but sometimes they're missing certain elements
and on
of
that
exposure.
Note, I'm going to cut you off, but we'll continue during the break. We are going to be right back after this short break. Stay tuned. Montgomery County, Maryland has been mentioned in the news more frequently in the last week than at any time since the Beltway shooting in 2002. As a native son, Brett Kavanaugh, has caught the attention of the nation, and now another native daughter, Christine Blasey Ford, is also in the news. Her allegations against Kavanaugh, a Supreme Court nominee, has caught the attention of the nation. Susan, the alleged abuse took place in high school and was discussed by Ford during marital counseling in 2012. As might be expected, women are more sympathetic and men are more skeptical. Sexual abuse is reported in only a minority of the cases, as victims are convinced that they will not be believed and fear retribution. Is Dr. Ford doing the right thing, Susan, and will it make a difference in this Senate composed of a lot of old white men?
I think she's doing the right thing because if it's the right thing for her, it's the right thing. When someone is nominated to the highest court in the land for a lifetime appointment, all of the information, all of the truth about someone's character is more important than almost any other position than president. And so not doing it, I think, again, it's her call, but not doing it would be a disservice to the public, to the country. And so yes, I think she's doing the right thing. As to whether or not it makes a difference, sadly, it's all about politics. The fact that they're old white men isn't so much an important thing as the fact that they're all men and they don't necessarily understand what it feels like. There's not a woman in the world who hasn't been sexually harassed or worse.
Okay, Evan, the Senate wants to push the Kavanaugh through the Senate in a process that has been swift. A need to have him on the bench by the opening of the next session in October. This urge to push the nomination has caused shortened question and answer sessions, a refusal to open a new FBI investigation, and comments from senior members of the Judiciary Committee that harken back to the Anita Hill hearing long before the Me Too movement. How do you view the process from a male Republican perspective?
Well, to say it's swift, I wouldn't first agree there. 6 of the last 9 Supreme Court justices that have been confirmed or nominated and confirmed happened in a shorter time span.
But Merrick Garland was a year.
Yeah, and you guys still can't get over that.
No.
Yeah, you never will. But I don't view it from a male Republican's perspective. I view it from a rational human's perspective. And I've seen him called all kinds of things on television in the media this week. Accused rapist, alleged rapist, or just a rapist. And this is based off an allegation with no evidence whatsoever. I mean, if the standard we're setting now is that someone just alleges you did something and then people get to call you a rapist and call you names for the rest of your life, then we're all screwed.
Unfortunately, I just have to insert here that I think part of this movement to call people names and be critical goes right up to the White House, where since he first ran for the first day he got out, he started calling people names and throwing accusations around. And if this is a result of that from either side, it's wrong. And so anyway, I'm so much for my sermon on International Peace Day. Elbridge, many believe that Kavanaugh was chosen because he believes that a president cannot be bothered with legal proceedings while in office, and furthermore believes that presidents have more powers like pardons. And this has been described as the president is above the law. It also endears him to conservatives that he does not believe that Roe versus Wade is settled law or that gay marriage is a given. Is there any way during these politically divisive times for the Kavanaugh appointment to be stopped?
Public opinion will have its day on this. Whether he's stopped because of that public opinion depends on the Republicans. My concern is that we don't know all his opinions on subjects that are important to the American people. The fact that he may want to overturn Roe versus Wade is troubling. The fact that he wants to overturn marriage equality is very, very, very troubling. We say one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not for some, for all. I think that is criteria that he needs to live with.
Now, Mark, President Trump has been restrained until today on attacking Dr. Ford and had favored a more tempered approach to the matter. He now, though, as in the past, seems to be attacking the female accusers/victims as the villains, as in the case of Judge Moore, his former White House lawyer, campaign manager Lewandowski, and of course in his own sex escapades. Women vote at a higher rate than men, and women appear to be tiring of Trump, and women appear to be believing Dr. Ford. I might add that Kavanaugh is the least popular Supreme Court nominee since polling began on this issue. So could all of this coming together now help to bring the downfall of the Republican Party in November?
Susan, I was waiting for a question in the middle of that whole speech. Let's be clear. I think the American people are very fair, and I think they're waiting for the opportunity to hear from Judge Kavanaugh about what happened, to hear from the other people who've been named by the accuser as having information about it, and from her. And they're looking for the opportunity to make a decision as to who they believe in this. And I think the accuser would do a real disservice not to come forward and testify and provide information. And I think in the court of public opinion, people will have a sense of being able to weigh the right and wrong of the situation.
She does want to come forward. Dr. Ford does want to come forward. She says she can be ready to testify.
But she has the opportunity. She was given
She has said that she's ready to testify on Thursday, and the pushback comes from the Republican males on the committee that they need her on Wednesday. What is the difference for one day to get the truth to the public?
And this is
opportunity, if I could.
And her name is Dr. Ford.
If I have the opportunity to answer, she's been negotiating. Everybody else in this has been prepared to come forward and provide evidence. She is very reluctant. Now, there are those who would be concerned that why is she so reluctant? Understand that if there's a discrepancy among the various stories, there could be an inference that somebody's committing perjury here, and people will make a judgment.
I might say, with Susan, let me just 1 minute. What they have said is during Anita Hill, they took 2 days of the FBI to investigate. Grassley said there will be no investigation. And you could say the American people make a decision, but this morning, Mitch McConnell at a conservative gathering said, don't worry about anything. He's going to be on the Supreme Court in 2 weeks. So this is the concern of women, I believe, and other people who are watching this. Americans maybe make a decision, but will the senators, the Republican senators, many of them were around at the time of Anita Hill, open their minds up and really listen? The way they've been coming out in the last few days,
Susan,
it's questionable.
There's a basic premise in our jurisprudence in our society that people have the opportunity to face their accuser, to hear the accusations that are made against them, and to be able to rebut them. And that's what I think people expect in this situation.
But this
that's
isn't
why,
a trial,
excuse me,
right?
let me just finish.
It's
that's
not
a reluctant, but it's part of how we make fact-finding in our society.
Right.
So the reluctance to come forward. Is it Monday? Is it Wednesday, Thursday? It's something that weighs on some people because so many other people are prepared to come out and say what she alleged
But then you
didn't happen.
need the FBI to step in.
And-
By your premise of what you're saying, you then need
And the
you need
FBI
the
has said
FBI to
that they are
step
not
in.
really appropriate in this
No, they
situation.
said
they would
because it
if
was
asked.
it is
No, they have
fundamentally
not
a
said that.
political. It's fundamentally a political
They
question.
have not said that it's not appropriate.
Yes.
It was appropriate for Dr. Hill, for Professor Hill, and it is appropriate for Dr. Ford.
And I might add that you say other witnesses. Senator Grassley, the chair of the committee, said there will be no other witnesses.
Yeah, but other people who have been named by her as having information about the situation have contradicted her the initial
Yes,
statement.
and you know what? That they can say that in a piece of paper. But when you get under oath and say, "I do solemnly swear," that person who wrote the book talking about
Mr.
That
Judge.
applies just as much for them as it does for Judge Kavanaugh, as it does for the accuser. All of that's the case.
Since this isn't a trial, and this is a question because you are an attorney, since this isn't a trial, does it? She's not she's not on trial for what she did because she didn't do anything. She is accusing someone, and the truth needs to come out.
Sure, we
and
all agree
and
the
she's
truth.
not reluctant to come forward. She needs a little more time.
Plus,
to
she
prepare.
wants to be. She's concerned about her safety. But the bottom line is,
And she'll be under oath,
but
as will he.
But
the
she's not denying her interest in doing it. She wants to do it.
Yeah, and the Montgomery County Police and Brian Frosch, our Attorney General, have been asked to investigate, and they said they would if
If she brings a charge,
then they would do
then
it.
the police
and
must
you know
bring-
what? This could go on for another
yeah.
half hour. But you know what? We got to take a break now. We will be back with parting shots in a minute. Now with parting shots, Susan.
Well, this general election in Montgomery County for county executive is the first time since 1974, which is 44 years, when the general election will actually make a difference. When everyone voting, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, will have their vote count because there are 3 people running for the race, and the Democrat is not, this time, the shoo-in. And that's pretty exciting.
Okay. Mark.
One of the issues that's not being addressed, at least as much as I think it ought to, is the frankly looming recommendations of the Kirwan Commission, which is looking at the financial aid formulas that the state provides for local jurisdictions. Buried in, and it was supposed to do it already, but they've delayed, buried in the footnote is the prospect of a massive cut in the amount of state aid that goes to Montgomery County in the hundreds of millions of dollars. This is a fundamental change that really should get more attention.
Okay, Evan.
So I was reading that college students are having trouble sending in their absentee ballots because they don't know where to find a stamp. I have a solution. A lot of college students also love Bernie Sanders, everyone's favorite lunatic socialist. So Bernie Sanders, in almost 30 years, has passed 3 bills that he was the main sponsor of, 2 renamed post offices. He averages about 1 accomplishment a decade. So, stampless college students, follow the trail of Bernie Sanders' only accomplishments in his life. It'll lead you to the stamp you're looking for.
Okay, Elbridge, you got to go really fast. You
It's
have 2
really good.
seconds.
Oh, God. Okay. Go Eagles. Thank you.
Wow, that is good. Okay, this is really exciting. MCM is hosting a county executive forum with independent candidate Nancy Florine, Democratic candidate Mark Elbridge, and Republican candidate Robin Ficker on Monday, October 1st from 7 to 8 p.m. The forum will be aired live on Channel 21 and will be live streamed at mcmlive.org. Tom Sherwood and Kojo Nambi will be asking the questions for this forum. This should be a very informative session as you make your choice for county executive, as Susan said. And I want to thank you to our panel, to the crew, and to all of you for joining us each week for Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show on 21 this week. And see you next time. I'm Susan Heltemes. Bye for now.